I'll be talking to you today about the PSAT. PSAT stands for the Preliminary SAT. Sophomores and juniors will be taking the PSAT on Wednesday, October 16th. You'll need to report to advisory by 7:45 a.m. It's very important that you report to class on time that day, as you cannot be late to start the test. The PSAT is important for 3 reasons. First, qualification for free dual credit through Ivy Tech if you hit minimum scores. It's also practice for the actual SAT. The PSAT mirrors the exam, the SAT exam, as far as content, format. And then for juniors, the PSAT is also the National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. On test day, you'll need to make sure you bring number 2 pencils. Please bring backups, but do not bring mechanical pencils. Those are not allowed for testing per the College Board. You also need to make sure you have an acceptable calculator. You'll open your student guide shortly, but on page 28 in that, it talks about what acceptable calculators are. If you typically use it for your Homestead math class, you'll probably be fine to use it on the PSAT. And then you also need to make sure you have an email address. Often students would like to use their school email address, but that email address is so long it doesn't fit in the boxes provided. So make sure you have either a personal email address or one for your parents. It is important that you provide that because students are able to get the results often a full month earlier electronically than we are able to give out paper copy of the exam results. What to not bring, please leave in your locker or turned off and in your bag. Cell phones, smartwatches, and your laptop. If your device makes noise or is seen during testing, it can invalidate your results, and also it may even be confiscated. So it's really important that you have those things turned off and put away. Even when you're done testing, you're not able to access your laptop to work on classwork until testing is dismissed for the day. Now I want you to look at the student guide that your teacher gave you. There's 3 pieces to that. One side is green, and it says at the top PSAT NMSQT student guide. If you flip it over, then it's also the National Merit Scholarship Program student guide. Again, that's just for juniors. And then inside the test book, you'll see PSAT NMSQT practice test number 1. Looking at your student guide, that's again the green side. There's general information that starts on page 1. You should review all of this information. Lots of information about what the test is like. One thing in particular to bring attention to is testing accommodations. Information for that is on page 6 of your student guide. Just because you receive accommodations on your normal daily testing does not mean that you will qualify for accommodations for the PSAT. Those have to have been approved through College Board. If you're not sure if you've received accommodations and you believe that you have, you may want to touch base with your teacher of record or your counselor. There are 2 major parts of the exam. There's evidence-based reading and writing, and the information for that starts on page 13 in your student guide. And then there's also math. So for the evidence-based reading and writing, there's information regarding the reading test that starts on page 13. And so that tells you what you'll read, what the reading test measures, tips for the reading test, and then there's sample materials. And same thing with the writing test. Writing and language test, and the information for that is on page 20. Again, what it's like, what you'll read, what it measures, and then tips, as well as sample questions. There's also information regarding the math test that starts on page 28. The math test is broken down into calculator sections and no calculator sections. The no calculator, so in general, the math section starts on page 28. The no calculator section starts on page 30, and the calculator section starts on page 34. So again, they talk through calculator information. There's specific type of questions called student-produced responses. They give you some tips for that, as well as some sample questions. And then when you look at that book that's inside the other book, that is your practice test number 1. It's great preparation for the test. They do give you the answers for it. They're on page 55. Also, the explanations for the answers and an additional full-length practice test can be found online if you go to collegeboard.org/PSAT practice. And then just some last minute information for the teachers. You will be administering the PSAT in your room to your advisory students with a few exceptions. There will be some room changes. That information will come from Mrs. Bay. And please contact her today, though, if your room is not conducive to testing. So if the setup isn't conducive or for some other reason, please contact her. If you have any absent students that did not get this information, please write the student's name on the top of the green booklet and then return it to Student Services, and we'll get that information out to students. Thank you for listening.